Hello and welcome to Radio Faces, brought to you by hcctv. I'm ND Kalu, and he is Hall of Fame sports writer John the General McClain. You can see his articles on chron.com. When you're in your car, when you're listening to the radio, go to Sports Radio 610, and you can hear his great commentary. This is the man, the myth, the legend, John the General McClain.
Where'd you come up with that? That's ND Kalu, 12-year defensive end for the Eagles, Redskins, and the Texans, and we've got a big show here for you today. Barry Warner, the original radio legend and the original radio face. He'll be back with his weekly rant. But as always, here in our Main Street studio, let's talk about the Texans. You picked them by 14. I picked them by 11. What do you think about what they did to the Colts?
What I think they sent a message, not just to the fans, not to the AFC South, but to everybody who's watching, that this is finally the year I think they're going to live up to expectations. I have to talk about the unsung heroes first, the offensive line. Those guys, the big uglies, the guys in the trenches, they don't get the credit that people want to give them. But when you put in your third-string running back and he rushes for over 100 yards, coming off a season where you blocked for the number one rusher in the entire NFL, something has to be going on right with the offensive line. They've been together for a couple years now. They've mastered this system. There's a lot of cohesiveness, and I think that the team is going to go as the offensive line goes, and this offensive line looks very good.
John Benton, their coach, very underrated, came in here with Gary Kubiak. Then they bring Mike Sherman over him. Then they bring Alex Gibbs over him. Then they turn it over to him. Players have been saying all along, Benton is a great coach. Washington tried to hire him, and they said no. I hope he got a good raise because he deserved it.
He definitely deserves it, and if they didn't give him the raise, Arian Foster, Ben Tate, and the O-line, they need to all chip in and give him a little bonus.
I've been waiting for you to work in your old owl. I know you got him on your mind.
Well, my old owl, the old Rice owl, James Casey, talk about versatility. This guy is playing the traditional fullback position that was vacated by Vontae Leach, who went on to greener pastures for Baltimore, and he has lived up to everything. When you talk about James Casey, he has pancaked guys time and time again. It's only been one preseason game, but I think he has on the books 4 pancake blocks that have helped open the hole for Ben Tate. And not only is he a good, vicious blocker, you could line him up anywhere. You know, at one point it was Rice. He played 8 different positions. That's the type of athlete he is. Against the Indianapolis Colts, he lined up at 4 different positions: at fullback, tight end, at the Y, at the Z. You could put him anywhere, and he's not just a decoy. He's somebody that Matt Schaub is going to target because he knows if that ball's anywhere near James Casey, he's going to catch it, and he's going to get those yards after the catch.
He got 3 catches against the Colts, and they moved him around, and as time goes on, Gary Kubiak's going to find more ways to get him the ball. I would love someday to see him throw, to see him run, see him go way down the field and catch the ball. We got an injury update, of course, at Kevin Walter. There were a lot of reports that he had a broken shoulder and was out 10 to 12 weeks. Turns out it's a badly bruised shoulder. They'll reevaluate it during the week and at the end of the week, and I think that he'll be out. Jacoby Jones will start. We saw him starting last year when Andre was out. How do you feel about the switch for Jacoby from Kevin Walter?
Well, first of all, anytime you lose a guy like Kevin Walter, you lose the intangibles. You lose the things that don't show up on the stat sheet. You know, he's going to block for you downfield. He's going to be that decoy that runs the perfect route to get the defensive backs to commit to him, so it leaves Andre Johnson a little more open. So you're going to miss something. But Jacoby Jones, 27 years old now, he's matured. He's shown that he'll do any and everything. I had a conversation with Jacoby Jones before the season, and I remember asking him, do you want to do punt returns, or do you just want to focus on being a receiver? And one thing that he said to me that stuck in my mind, he said, I don't care what I'm doing. I just want to be on the field. They can use me as the 5th offensive lineman if they have to. That's what he wants to do. He's passionate. So I expect to see him be passionate about making the blocks, be passionate about the things that don't involve him scoring touchdowns. I don't think they're going to drop off. And like you mentioned with James Casey, with Kevin Walter out, whether it be 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks, now you're going to see a lot more James Casey. They just have so many weapons. I don't think this offense is going to miss a beat.
They had 386 yards, and Owen Daniels caught 1 pass. You know, it's amazing. Now, Derek Ward, they said is day-to-day. Arian Foster's supposed to be back. Ben Tate gains 116 yards. Steve Slayton, 13 yards on his first carry. It's amazing the depth and talent that they have at this position. Now, I know you said you tutored. I know you tutored James and you tutored Jacoby. Now, you personally, I'm sure, taking responsibility for Mario's big game. What'd you say to Mario?
Well, first of all,
He's your protege.
I can't take credit for any of those guys. They're great on their own. And with Mario, he just looked good. I had questions about seeing an all-pro defensive end who's used to rushing with his hand in the dirt, moving up to a two-point. Well, he answered all those questions. He answered the critics by having 2 sacks. Both the sacks came against pass-catching tight end and Dallas Clark, but that's what's going to happen when you have Wade Phillips controlling your defense. He's going to make sure that you have those mismatches. You're going to have your best pass rusher going against a tight end, and it's up to the best pass rusher to answer the call, and that's exactly what Mario Williams did. He had 2 sacks. He hit him another 2 times, and he was just all over Kerry Collins. I think every week he's going to get more and more comfortable rushing from a 2-point, and he's going to end up having another all-pro season.
Yeah, the forced fumble, almost got a fumble on the way. He forced Kerry Collins into that intentional grounding because he couldn't hit the ball to the line of scrimmage because he chased him so far. That rule ought to be a sack to me. If you force an intentional grounding, you should get credit for it. Now, special teams were great. That we all thought the return game was the weakness. Danielle Manning, 46 yards opening kickoff. Jacoby's touchdown. What do you think about special teams?
I thought they looked like the special teams that I'm used to seeing Joe Marciano coach. Joe Marciano, the special teams coach, he's regarded as one of the best special team coaches in the NFL, and that's what I saw out there. Last year they dropped off, and I don't think they dropped off last year because of the return men. It was because of the blocking. And when you saw Daniel Manning open the game with that big kickoff return, you saw gaping holes, and he used his speed to hit the holes. When you saw Jacoby Jones with his electrifying punt return for a touchdown, a lot of it was Jacoby because he just has the instincts, he has athleticism, but there were holes, there was gaps, not too many hands were on him. So those are team touchdowns, those are team returns. That's the success of the entire special teams unit, and you see that they really focus on making sure that their blocks were there. Every man was on a man, and that's what you want to do when you're blocking on special teams. It's just to get in front of the defender to make sure that they can't make a clean tackle on your return guy.
I have a column in Wednesday's Chronicle about the changing attitude in the locker room, about after beating Indy last year, they celebrated like it was the playoffs. In this game, it was almost like they lost because they knew the offense was bad in the second half. What do you think about that, and what did you do? Are you supposed to worry about the offensive performance in the second half?
I'm not too concerned with the offensive performance in the second half. I personally would have liked to at least see them put up another 10 points, a field goal, because what that tells me, when you score 34 points in the first half and you don't score any in the second, that the other team, the opposing team, made the adjustments that they needed to make to stop you. And if that can be said for an entire half, well, when they go to Miami and they play the Miami Dolphins, whatever adjustments the Indianapolis Colts made during halftime, those are the same adjustments the Miami Dolphins are going to try to do for the entire game. So that's my biggest concern, that they couldn't go out there and produce. But I also believe that they were in coast mode, whether it be subconsciously or consciously, that they felt like, you know what, we have this game, let's get through here without any injuries. Not saying that that's the correct thought, but subconsciously I think that's what they were thinking, and they weren't quite as intense. They're going to be intense when they kick off over there in Miami when they play the Miami Dolphins.
When they brought Andre Johnson to the media room, he was so subdued. I thought he'd been injured, or maybe they'd gotten beat and I forgot about it. But I think he's seen that before, seen a 1-0 start. He wants to see many more of that starting with Miami. Now, when we come back, we'll go to our smart decision of the week. Stay tuned.
How valuable is a faculty comprised of PhDs, MDs, MBAs, with international research grants and prestigious national positions? You'll find just that at HCC. But those aren't the only things that differentiate our faculty. We are at the forefront of what's next in teaching and technology. We are leading our students to new futures and better opportunities. HCC, smart decision.
Welcome back to Radio Faces at our Main Street studios here at Houston Community College. Right now, we've got our HCC Smart Decision of the Week, probably a lot of them on the Texans' part. I'll show you mine if you show me yours.
All right, I'll show you mine first. And the smart decision is thinking about depth. And where I'm going with this is the fact that the Houston Texans, they held on to Steve Slayton when I thought they could have traded him away and either received a pick for the future or some more value for this year's team. They held on to him, and it's looking like it's going to be a smart decision because going into Miami right now, Ben Tate is the only healthy running back that you could look at. Derek Ward has a minor injury. Arian Foster may or may not be coming back from that hamstring. So you need to have at least 2 legitimate, proven running backs on your roster going into a game. And by keeping Steve Slayton, that's what they're going to be able to do when they go face the Dolphins in Miami.
Well, my smart decision is that they didn't listen to pressure from people like you about moving Mario back to defensive end. We talked about that earlier, but Wade Phillips said, wait till he gets a full game and he'll make plays. Now, dumb decisions to me were when they had him block against Dallas Clark. Tell me what you told me off camera about what they meant to do, the Colts, with Dallas Clark in a tackle.
Well, there's absolutely no way that any coach in his right mind coaching on the NFL level, even in the amateur level, could look at the matchup and say, we're going to use Dallas Clark to block Mario Williams and protect our quarterback when my quarterback is Kerry Collins. What they were supposed to do, what they were trying to do, they were going to have Dallas Clark just get in the way of Mario, then have the tackle help. So in essence, that needed to be a double-team block, but both of Mario's sacks came against Dallas Clark blocking him and blocking him alone. That was a huge mistake on part of the Indianapolis Colts, whether it was the offensive line coach, offensive coordinator, or just the offensive tackle not executing the play the right way. There is no way they went into that game. There's no way they went into that particular play saying that we're going to block Mario one-on-one with Dallas Clark.
That's going to be so much fun watching the rest of the year to see what offenses try to do against him. Now, going back to the first game where Green Bay beat New Orleans, it's been a great opening weekend. A lot of things have happened. Let's go around the league. Let's start with you. What do you want to talk about?
First of all, we're going to talk about all the great things that happen in the NFL. We're going to need to have a 2-hour show. But one of the things that stuck out in my mind was the individual performance of Cam Newton. And what I want to see in the future is how is he going to respond? Because he answered a lot of critics in one game. You don't make yourself a quarterback in this NFL off one game, but it was a good positive start for him to throw for over 400 yards, have over 100 quarterback rating. But when it's all said and done, he lost his first game since junior college. So I want to see how is he going to respond. Is he going to take that loss to heart? Is he going to be upset, or is he going to be happy that he had a great individual performance? I want my quarterback to be mad anytime he loses, regardless of how many yards he throws for. And I hope the people surrounding him, those are the people that have to keep him in check. Instead of patting him on the back and saying, hey, you're the man, you've arrived, they need to say, you know what, you lost your first game. You're the quarterback. You lead the Carolina Panthers, and you lost. They need to get in his head and make sure that he doesn't get satisfied, because if it does, he's going to have a short career in this league.
I think 422 yards, the most in NFL history for a first-time starting rookie quarterback. But what impressed me more, one interception. He threw the ball all those times and only had one interception. I don't care if you're his biggest fan. Nobody could have expected Cam Newton to have that kind of start. I think he's going to improve on it. I thought they'd be the worst team in the league now. No, there's a lot worse teams than him. And there's some good teams off to bad starts.
Oh, there's some real good teams off to bad starts. When you look at the Atlanta Falcons, that's a team that a lot of people are saying going to represent the NFC this year, and they just got blown out. Matt Ryan didn't look like Matt Ryan. I understand he was playing on grass, and his record's much better on turf, but that team didn't look like they were going to represent the NFC. Kansas City, you know, that's the team that won their division. They were blown out. They let Buffalo Bills put up 41 points at home. One of the hardest places that I had to play was in Kansas City, and for Buffalo to go in there, let's look at the positive real quick. They're saying we're not the same Buffalo Bills, but I was just surprised that Kansas City allowed them to do that at home. There was just so many big surprises going on, and the biggest one was a team that was beat by a very good team, but I didn't expect them to ever show the way that they showed and have 7 turnovers in the Pittsburgh Steelers. Baltimore, they just owned them for the entire game. They had them commit 7 turnovers. They didn't look like the same Pittsburgh Steelers that we were used to seeing. I think they will bounce back, but those are 3 big surprises from good teams that I expected to open up the season a lot better than they did.
The Ravens talked the talk and walked the walk this time, but something I didn't like at all. What would you think about the Steelers' reaction to this? It's 27-7, and they went for 2 instead of kicking the extra point.
You know what that says? That says we really don't like you. This isn't just a media thing. This isn't something that we do to sell tickets before we play each other. We, the Baltimore Ravens, do not like the Pittsburgh Steelers, and we're going to try to rub your face in it. If you have a problem with it, stop it. When that happens, though, the tables could turn real quick because Pittsburgh, they're going to see Baltimore again. And if Pittsburgh has the upper hand, you best believe that they're going to try to rub their nose in it also.
Good chance they're going to play 2 more times like they did last year. Now, 2 quarterbacks, 2 of the top quarterbacks, Tony Romo and Mark Sanchez, played Sunday night. Romo looked great, built the big lead, had his 4th quarter meltdown. A lot of people are saying Romo's a choker. A lot of Cowboy fans are upset because they've been spoiled through the decades going back to Don Meredith. What do you think about those 2 quarterbacks?
Well, when you look at that, I watched that entire game. I was very interested in that game, the outcome. And both of those quarterbacks, they looked good when there wasn't that much pressure in the game. If you want to be a big-time quarterback, you want to be considered the elite. You want to be considered the Tom Brady's, the Aaron Rodgers, the Drew Breeses of the current order. You have to do it when it counts. And I'm talking about in the 4th quarter when the game's on the line. Both those quarterbacks had a chance to put the game away in the 4th quarter. Tony Romo had 2 turnovers in the 4th quarter. And Sanchez just couldn't get it done with the drives to try to lead his team to make a comeback. The reason the Jets won was because of special teams and because of the entire team. And you want to win because of the team. But when you're talking about you have a great quarterback like Coach Ryan likes to say about his quarterback and Romo who wants to be one of the elite, you have to take advantage of leading your team in the 4th quarter. And I don't think either one of those quarterbacks have done it. They're good quarterbacks. They're above average. But to be considered elite, they're going to have to put together winning drives, winning comebacks in the 4th quarter when the pressure is on.
All I know about Mark Sanchez, he's been an AFC championship game his first 2 years in the league. And I know it's not just him, but he's a winner. Tony Romo, they can't say he's a winner. Now you're making a face because that Sanchez is their quarterback,
right.
And they have been one step short of the Super Bowl 2 years in a row.
And I think, again, this is the ultimate team sport, but some teams are stronger than others. Mark Sanchez, he's a fine quarterback, but I can't say that he led his team to the AFC championships. I think his team carried him to the AFC championships.
Okay, now in the AFC South, you know who's tied with the Texans for first place? A team with Luke McCown at quarterback. Tennessee was driving, had a chance to set up the winning field goal. Matt Hasselbeck threw a really bad pass, intercepted down the field. They couldn't stop Jacksonville's running game. Are we going to see Jacksonville keep this up and the Titans keep this up, or is it kind of just some false impression after the first week?
I think most of the impressions after the first week are false impressions. You know, going back to what I was saying about Pittsburgh and Baltimore, I don't think Pittsburgh is that bad. It's a false impression to think that they're going to have 7 turnovers a game. Jacksonville, they had success running the ball. Well, when you have a good running back like MJD, you're going to pound out 98 to 100 yards a game. The question is, when you utilize that one running back as much as they've been, will he be healthy for the entire season? And that's where I have a question. I don't see him running and being as productive as he was this first game for the entire season. So, false impression, yes. Matt Hasselbeck, he's a good quarterback. He's in a new system. It's going to take him about 3 or 4 weeks to get comfortable with his receivers, with Kenny Britt, with Cook, the tight end, with his playmakers. When it's all said and done, Tennessee's going to be better than they showed. And Jacksonville, I think they're actually going to step back.
Before we go to your chalk talk, Kevin Cobb. Kevin threw for more than 300 yards. He also did not throw an interception. Looked great on throwing the ball, the 20-yarders, even threw a 70-yarder. What do you think about the start he had for Arizona?
I'm not surprised. You know, I'm one of the few guys that said this is a proven NFL quarterback, and everybody was asking me, well, how are you going to say he's proven? He's only started 6 or 7 games when he was with the Philadelphia Eagles. But what he did during that time, learning under Andy Reid, learning under Marty Morningwig, seeing how Michael Vick and Donovan McNabb carried themselves, I knew he was ready and primed to be the starter. I expect to see games like this from Kevin Cobb throughout this season, and he's going to end up a top-tier type, top 10, top 12 quarterback before this season's over.
St. Louis was a sexy pick to win that division. Rams have already had some debilitating injuries. When we come back, we're going to go to Indy's Chalk Talk. Stay tuned.
How valuable is a faculty comprised of PhDs, MDs, MBAs, with international research grants and prestigious national positions? You'll find just that at HCC. But those aren't the only things that differentiate our faculty. We are at the forefront of what's next in teaching and technology. We are leading our students to new futures and better opportunities. HCC, smart decision.
All right, right now I'm going to talk to you about the difference between closed side and open side. A lot of times people talked about Mario Williams getting his 2 sacks on the closed side when we all expected him to get most of his rushes, most of his production on the open side. So let me just break down those 2 terms for you real quick. Right now, when you hear the open side of the offense, they typically talk about the side away from the tight end. That's the side right here where you have that open gap between the offensive tackle and the sideline. That's where most guys like myself and current players, current pass rushers, they like to rush because there's not as much going on. When you hear the close side, that means it's the side of the tight end because that gap that I showed you is now closed off because there's a tight end right there. And this is where you don't expect your best pass rusher to be lined up because typically he has to go through a tight end and an offensive tackle on his way to the quarterback. But real quick, let me show you what Mario did and the success that he had on the closed side. A lot of times, I don't know if it was the genius of Wade Phillips or the inability of the offensive coordinator for the Indianapolis Colts, you saw Mario lined up against a pass-catching tight end whose number one goal was to block him on a play and protect the quarterback. That didn't happen. Mario's too good of a pass rusher for any tight end to block him one-on-one. You see here on the screen, 9-0, that's Mario Williams. That's the guy that was going against Dallas Clark, and Dallas Clark was responsible for keeping Mario off Kerry Collins, which he failed. So Mario lined up on the close side, and twice he just ran around and got to Kerry Collins, and that's why he had 2 sacks. That's why he's going to end up the year with 10 or more sacks because Wade Phillips is going to be able to create these mismatches and put him on the tight end. And some of the times, he's also going to be on the open side where he's going one-on-one with an offensive tackle, and he has a lot of room to work with. So that, ladies and gentlemen, is the difference between open side rushing and closed side rushing. Now is what everybody's been waiting for, except for myself and John McClain. We're going to leave the studio and let y'all hear Barry's rant.
Every year, mothers lose their babies to gun crimes. You'll always be your mother's baby. So before you commit a gun crime, think about who you'll leave behind. Gun crimes hit home.
Sunday was an incredible day in the life of this curmudgeon. It was the 39th birthday of my son, Brent, the greatest gift that the good Lord has ever given me. Then, like millions of Americans throughout this great country, the pride of seeing the stars and stripes unfurled made the hair in my head in the press box look like Don King. And it got even better with the PS game. Notice I said PS, not BS. Perfect storm. The Colts without Peyton Manning for the first time since Jim Harbaugh was their quarterback, and a Texan football team out to prove that they are not tissue paper soft, and they are the legitimate pick to win the AFC South. And it got even better. Yes, because I got to see, like millions of Americans, America's team with their overrated coach, boy genius, the redheaded wonder, Jason Garrett, who still can't teach his quarterback, Tony Romo, to either tie his shoes or run a 2-minute drill. But it got worse on Monday. Call after call after call about Kevin Walter's shoulder injury, how the Texans are idiots, how they should sign Randy Moss, how they should sign T.O., and how Kevin Walter is easily replaceable. Wrong, wrong, and wrong, folks. Number one, T.O. is coming off of an ACL. And he's in better shape than he is. Number two, Randy Moss can't block. But the little things that Kevin Walter does, he runs the best routes, which clears things out underneath for the crossing patterns. He does the dirty work. He blocks. And like a Chuck Hayes, the things he does not show up in the box score. So, folks, you Kevin Walter haters, zip it.
How valuable is a faculty comprised of PhDs, MDs, MBAs, with international research grants and prestigious national positions? You'll find just that at HCC. But those aren't the only things that differentiate our faculty. We are at the forefront of what's next in teaching and technology. We are leading our students to new futures and better opportunities. HCC, smart decision.
Welcome back to Radio Faces at our HCC Main Street studios. He's Indy Kalu. He's really got that chalk talk down. I'm impressed.
I'm learning.
Let's go to make the call. Let's start with the Texans at the Dolphins. And we all saw what New England did at Miami on Monday night.
Right. Even though the Houston Texans look great, I'm not going to say that they're New England yet, but that offense is very similar as far as its productivity and unstoppability. I just made that word up. You're a journalist. I'm sure you could use that now. But when you look at the Texans offense, it just seems like you can't stop them in between the 20s. It's up to them to be able to score in the 25, the red zone. They went to Andre Johnson last week in the red zone, something they didn't do a lot last year. I think Miami is going to fall to the Houston Texans at home. I have the Texans winning 28-14.
In 2009, Miami needed to make the playoffs. The Texans went there, had them down 27-0 at halftime. It was so bad, J-Lo and Fergie got up and left. Now, I can't wait to see this one after Tom Brady threw for 517, and New England had, 622 yards, and they're supposed to have the best corners in the league based on what Vontae Davis said. I think the Texans are going to win this about 30-20. I think Matt Schaub's going to have a big game, and I think Arian Foster will be back, and the running game will be outstanding too, even on that surface, which sometimes can get a little wet. Now let's go to the AFC South. We got the Tennessee and Baltimore. Baltimore's 1-0. Tennessee's 0-1. Who do you like?
I like Baltimore right here. I think they're riding high after the big victory against Pittsburgh, and this is a smash-mouth team. I think they're going to go in there. They're not going to let Matt Hasselbeck get comfortable. I think Baltimore is going to dominate the entire game with a score of 30-10.
Any possible letdown?
Not with that nucleus, not with the Ray Lewises, the Ed Reeds, the Terrell Suggs, Coach Harbaugh, guy that I got a chance to play under in Philadelphia. Those personalities, they don't let down.
Ravens got that unstoppability. Ravens 27-10. Now, the battle of the unbeatens, Jacksonville at the Jets. Another possible letdown?
Now, this is a team I do see a letdown when you talk about the New York Jets. There's a lot of barking going on with the coaches, the players. But when they roll the ball out there, and there's something that I'm just not yet sold on the New York Jets, this is my upset pick of the week. I think Jacksonville's going to try to ground the ball out. They're going to run it with MJD. This is going to be the upset of the week because I feel like the Jets are going to be looking past the Jacksonville Jaguars, and they're going to smack them and surprise them. Jacksonville's going to win this game 14-10.
Old-fashioned football.
Yes.
I think the Jets are going to beat them 27-13. Wow, you went out on walk that plank. Now, the Dallas Cowboys, they do still play football up in Arlington.
Are you sure?
Cowboys blew that first game. They go to San Francisco. 49ers use great special teams with Ted Ginn Jr. returning a punt and kickoff for a touchdown. Are the Cowboys going 0-2?
No, they're not. This is going to be a decent year for the Cowboys. They're going to get back on track. They're going to get back on track with the San Francisco 49ers because right now I think the Cowboys are hearing all the frustration from the fans, from the media. Their backs are against the wall. They don't want to be the laughingstock of the NFL. They're going to go in and they're going to get some respectability back in San Francisco. They're going to win that game. They're going to utilize all their skill positions, and they're going to put up 30 points to San Francisco's 7.
I think Cowboys 34-10. They're going to prove they're still the third best team in Texas behind the Texans and Texas A&M. He's Indy Kalu. I'm John McClain. Stay tuned. We'll be back next week with another Radio Faces.
Thank you.